Before I begin, I just want to take a moment to bring us together, and if we could all take a moment of silence for all of those that we have lost to suicide, all of those that we know, that we love, and that we care about live with any kind of diagnosable mental illness or substance use disorder. Moment of silence. Are you okay? Is something wrong? Can I help you? My new friends, those were the only words I wanted to hear the day I found myself standing atop the Golden Gate Bridge walkway. I was 19, and I was not making a choice. I believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that I had not one other course to take but to die using these two hands. I believed I was useless. I knew I had no value or worth, and I absolutely thought that everyone in my family and all of my friends considered me their greatest burden. And on all accounts, I was wrong, but I couldn't see it. I stood atop that bridge after catching two buses there, a Muni train and a bus in San Francisco. On that first train, I sat in a cornered area looking out of reflective glass at that man I had come to loathe. Looking at that man that I vowed I could never be anymore. Every time I would look in the mirror at home leading up to my attempted suicide, that man would tell me how useless and worthless I was. He would say things like, "Kevin, you have to die because you don't have a choice. It's inevitable. You're a horrible person." And at that time in my life, I had been battling for 2 years a diagnosis of bipolar disorder type 1 with psychotic features, just like my biological parents before me as I am adopted. You see, they lived with that disease, that diagnosis, and they coped with drugs, and they died of drugs, but they died of mental illness. I could never understand that that man was always just me. And on that train, it was the same feeling. And I was hearing voices in my head, auditory hallucinations from trauma as an infant, auditory hallucinations telling me what I had to do. And I got from that train only money to get on that train, to get a paper transfer, to get on that next bus that would take me out to that bridge. And I sat in that bus in the very back row, in the middle seat, looking out upon everyone as I am right now. 100 or so people eventually boarded this bus. And that's when it happened. I became what suicidologists call ambivalent. I don't want to die. What am I doing? I'm 19. I don't have to do this. Kevin, call anyone. Get a phone, find a phone, call your father who you were living with. Ask for help. But the voice in my head said, "Be quiet, Kevin. You have to do this." And then that voice became louder than it had ever been. At decimals, I can't explain to you literally because it would pierce eardrums, yelling at me what I had to do. And as I sat on that bus, crying like a child, waterfalls pouring from my eyes, mucus dripping from my nose, one of those real unattractive cries, and I'm on that bus crying like that, and not one person said anything as I'm yelling aloud to the voices in my head, "Leave me alone. What did I ever do to you? I don't want to die." The man to my left was the only man to react aloud. He said to the fella to his left, while pointing at me with his thumb, with a smile on his face, "What the hell's wrong with that kid?" And that, my friends, is what's wrong with some of this society today. The ability to see someone, anyone, in the most pain they've ever experienced and feel nothing but apathy, Well, that's his or her problem, but it ain't mine. I disagree. Like most of you, maybe all of you, I believe that if we are nothing else on this planet, we are one thing. We are each other's brothers and sisters keepers. And you don't have to have faith in God to believe that. I believe we are not here solely for our own personal betterment or gain, but that we are here to give back to each other. Those we love, those we know, those we care about, those we don't know from Adam, and those we don't even like. But on that bus, which arrived at the Golden Gate Bridge parking lot, I had one thing to do. And I sat there until everybody deboarded. They got off that bus with their fanny packs from 1985 in the year 2000. They were colorful, if you can imagine. Who had a fanny pack? Come on. Come on. Who still has one? Who rocks it today? That's what I'm talking about. All your friends want one. Everyone in this room. They get off that bus with cameras that your kids wouldn't understand weren't yet phones. They get off that bus with foreign accents from all over the world. And they were there to create beautiful memories for those back home. They were there to create gorgeous things with their cameras off of that bridge, because that's what 20 million people do every year. They go there to see that view. And sadly, I was there to delete all of my memories, and nobody at home knew. I walked across that bridge for 40 minutes, crying, like I told you. And bikers, joggers, tourists, runners, police officers searching for suicidal people, they all went by me twice. And those officers hadn't been trained in suicide prevention efforts yet. They are today. They save roughly 100 to 120 lives a year, yet one person dies off the Golden Gate Bridge every 7 to 10 days. But that, my friends, guess what, gets to stop, because as of 2021 in January, we just broke ground on the net that will delete suicides from the Golden Gate Bridge forever beyond that point. They're building it now. Not one more beautiful human being's soul will be lost to that bridge as of 2021. But that wasn't the case when I was there. And I found my spot, a particular light rail. And that's when a woman from my left approached me. She had blonde curly hair, and she wore those sunglasses you ladies love to wear that don't fit your face. No offense meant, but they're large, and you kind of look like a bug. I'm just saying. Just saying. And she approached with a smile on her face, and I thought to myself, this is it. She is going to ask me if I'm okay. I don't have to do this. I don't have to die today. I'm 19 and I don't have to do this. And she approached, and then she pulled out a digital camera and she said, "Will you take my picture?" I looked at her and I thought, this is terrible timing. But okay. So I took her camera, and she posed like 5 times, like a model. And I gave her the camera back, and she walked away. But she didn't walk 20 yards off the bridge. She walked back across the entire span, taking pictures the whole way. Because that's what people did. And that's when I said to myself, absolutely nobody cares. Was that true? Was that true? Everybody cared. Every member of my family, every one of my friends, my acquaintances would have been there to rip me from that rail to safety because they cared if they knew where I was or what I was doing. But my brain wasn't allowing me to care. I was in the most brain pain I had ever experienced. And my beliefs were wrong because of distorted reality and limited life view. An irrational thought that leads to suicide. And she walked away. I said nobody cares. I walked back to the traffic grounding. I sprinted forward, and I catapulted myself into free fall. But that, my friends, is not the important part of the story, unlike some people believe it is. The next moment is, because at the millisecond of free fall, the millisecond my hands left that rail and my legs cleared it, instant regret for my actions. And the absolute recognition that I had just made the greatest mistake of my life, and that it was too late. too late for well over 2,000 people that have died since 1937 at that bridge. 1% have survived, 36 people over time. 5 of us have regained full physical mobility. 1 of 5. Some call it the most exclusive survivors club in the world, featured in a book called The Survivors Club. But as I fell, in those next 3 seconds, my only thoughts were these: what have I just done? I don't want to die. God, please save me. And then I hit the water. And I went down 70 feet beneath the water's surface because of the velocity at which I was falling. And I opened my eyes. I'm alive. I thought you died on impact. I'm drowning. I don't want to drown. It had never occurred to me, jumping into a giant body of water, that I might drown. Irrational thought leads to suicidal crisis. And I realized something very quickly. My legs weren't moving. Upon impact, I had shattered my T12, L1, and L2 lower vertebrae into shards like glass. They splintered and popped throughout my insides. I was in the most physical pain I have ever experienced in my life to date. And I had only one option: to use only my arms to live. And that was my only choice. I swam as fast as my arms would take me. My right arm wrench, moving it past here, caused exquisite pain, but I had to if I was going to live, and that's what I did. I swam as fast as my arms would take me, 70 feet. And as I got closer and closer to the lit circle of water above me, I thought, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to drown. The asphyxiation in my chest, the pressure on my body, eyes bulging, ears ringing. I said, Kevin, you can't die here. If you die here, no one will ever know you didn't want to. No one will ever know you knew you made a mistake. And I broke the surface. I bobbed up and down in the water, and I did the only thing I had control over. I prayed. Been a praying man my whole life. God, please save me. I don't want to die. Over and over and over again. 3 things came into play that were my miracle. A woman driving by in a red car saw me go over that rail, and she called her friend in the Coast Guard. The reason the Coast Guard boat arrived to my position within the timely manner of 10 minutes, a few minutes in those frigid waters before you set in hypothermia and drown, was because of that woman making that phone call. And the Coast Guard, they were there within 10 minutes because they were nearby, but they wouldn't have gotten that call that quick without that woman. In the water, as I flailed to stay afloat, I kept going down. I was wearing long-sleeve clothing and boots. It was very hard to swim with only your arms, but I did it. Something very large, very slimy, and very alive began circling beneath me. And I thought to myself, you gotta be kidding me. I didn't die off the Golden Gate Bridge and a shark is going to eat me? That's ridiculous. And I start taking that wrenched arm and punching it, but it's not going away. It's just circling faster and faster. And no, now I'm no longer wading in the water to stay afloat. I'm lying on my back atop it, being kept buoyant by this thing, thinking, this is one heck of a nice shark. So I named him, because that's what you do, Herbert. Anyway, so he's keeping me afloat until the Coast Guard boat arrives behind me. This creature takes off. Later I found out on a show on ABC where I said I thought there was a shark beneath me. Guy writes in from Vegas. He says, I was on the bridge that day. He said, Kevin, I'm so very glad you're alive. I was standing less than 2 feet from you when you jumped. He said, until this day, no one would ever tell me whether you lived or died. It's been haunting me until right now watching this show. By the way, there was no shark, but it was a sea lion. And then he said, and I have pictures, which I was like, okay, weirdo. Just relax with the pictures. But anyway. The next part of the miracle is that the doctor who performed my back surgery was leaving the door. He was leaving the hospital through the emergency section when I was coming in. He was not supposed to be there that day. He stayed for me, and he performed a back surgery on me with a titanium cylindrical cage of mesh wiring, 4 pins the size of my index finger, a metal plate to the size of my palm to my left side, that he invented for me with his team. And it has given me the ability to do this, and this, and this. Ladies and gentlemen, the recovery wasn't easy. A wheelchair to a back brace and a cane to a back brace to a walker and a cane, and then right into a psych ward, because that's where you go. And I was in 7 psych ward stays in the next 11 years. And it was the hardest 11 years of my life. And I still struggle with chronic suicidal thoughts. But they, I promise you, will never, ever kill me. Because I will turn to people like my lovely wife, Margaret, and I will always say to my wife, my father, or my friends, I need help now. So if you're going to learn one thing from today, I ask that it be this. Whatever you're going through, and we all got issues, whatever you're going through in life, whatever you've been through that's painful, whatever you struggle with right now, do me a solid after you leave this door and never, ever silence your pain. It's valid. It's yours. It's real, and it matters because you do. And when we silence our pain because we feel like we're a burden, we're losing the heart of our soul. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday is history. Tomorrow's a mystery. Today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. I ask you to always and forever cherish this day and every waking moment of this gorgeous gift we get to have called life. Thank you. Thank you very much.